Hello, welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Matthew Lucas.
And I'm Stephen Ryan.
And it is Christmas Eve. Are you excited?
Well, sort of. I hope I get a good present. But for those of you who don't celebrate Christmas, I hope you have a lovely holiday nonetheless.
And if you do celebrate Christmas, happy Christmas. Now, Stephen, you are surrounded by a halo of Christmas roses.
Yes.
What's the rose?
This is Rosa Mutabilis from China, and it's one of my all-time favourite roses.
Can I take a guess? Mutabilis means changeable. Is that
Yes.
because the flower changes colour?
Exactly. Well
Have I
done.
not learnt something from
Well
you?
done. Yes, it comes out sort of apricot and goes through shades of pink before the flower
Very
finishes.
pretty.
So
But
it's lovely.
that is not the subject of our Christmas special, is it, Mr. Ryan?
No, it's not.
But if you want to know what we're doing every week, do hit subscribe and the notification bell, and you'll hear every week immediately when our new videos pop up, which is every Friday. Mm-hmm. But what is our Christmas special? What is your gift to us?
Well, we visited a lovely garden quite recently, and a plant that really caught my attention, which I think we should share with people for Christmas, albeit it's not going to be in flower in the Northern Hemisphere for Christmas, but it will be for us, is a very rare and interesting magnolia.
Now I love magnolias. All right, let's do some step back in time and look at the magnolia.
Matthew, I want to introduce you to a very, very interesting plant.
Yes.
Now, this is a magnolia, but it's not the classical spring flowering magnolias that we're all familiar with, the ones that flower in sort of that very late winter, early spring period when the tree is bare. This is Magnolia wilsonii, which comes from China, named after Wilson, who is a very famous plant collector.
His name crops up a lot.
Wilsonii. I think he was quite greedy personally, but anyhow. Now, these are an interesting group of magnolias. There's about 3 or 4 related ones. There's sinensis, there's wilsonii, there's seboldii, so there's a whole range of them. And they all have these cup-shaped flowers that hang down. They flower over a prolonged period in the early to mid-summer. So they don't have a mass of flowers at any given time, but they flower over a very extended period.
Which is useful in the garden.
I think, yes, it pays its way in the garden. Because the flowers sit hanging downwards, I think it's a very good idea if you have any sort of raised bed or raised area in the garden to plant it above you so that you can then stand underneath it and look up into the cupped flowers.
Yes, which we are doing now, and it looks stunning. The bees are loving it too.
Oh yes, and of course the centre of the flower, which has a lovely burgundy mass of stamens down in the centre, is part of the beauty of it. So you need to be able to look up into the cupped flowers. It's a small deciduous tree.
Yes.
Rarely grows more than about 4 metres or so.
Right.
Probably grows nearly as wide, so you get this lovely sort of archy canopy type effect with it. The foliage goes a soft yellow in the autumn, but it's really about its summer flowers that you grow this particular group of magnolias. They're cold hardy. They're not overly heat tolerant, so they do need a little bit of shelter from the real heat in the summer that we often get here in Australia. And they do like a reasonably well-drained open soil. So there's 3 or 4 species. You don't see them very often in Australia. You'll have to do a fair bit of hunting around to get them. But they're quite popular in Europe and North America because they do flower late. They tend to come out after all the frosts are over, so you don't get damaged flowers with the early spring frosts.
And after all the other magnolias. And actually we're in a bit of a grove of, I think, perhaps more unusual magnolias.
We are. We've got some of what were called Michaelias and are now incorporated into magnolia. And there's other spring flowering or late winter flowering magnolias in this area. So there's a whole drift of them, and they'll keep flowering right through until mid to late summer.
It's got a lovely fragrance. This slightly lemony, but I think the fragrance of all of these magnolias together it's very subtle and beautiful.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is. It's a gorgeous little tree. So there we go. So Magnolia wilsonii. It could be Wilsonii subspecies sinensis. There's a little bit of confusion about some of the...
Doesn't sinensis mean die?
No, sinensis means from the Sinai, which was an ancient term for China.
But doesn't sinensis mean dying as
No,
well?
senescence
Oh,
means...
senescence.
Yes. Sorry, you've got your sisses wrong.
My Latin's all mixed up. So if you were going to propagate this, how would you have a go at it?
As a commercial nurseryman, I'd probably grow this one from cuttings that would be done as semi-hardwood cuttings or softwood cuttings in the summer under mist spray. So not the easiest thing for the home gardener to propagate, although layering is definitely an option. If you've got a low branch that you can pin down into the ground, you could try layering it. Slightly subtle compared to some magnolias, but nonetheless a very elegant and beautiful tree.
There we are. Is it true that the magnolia is an ancient flowering species, if not one of the first flowering species on Earth.
Yes, it has very simple flower form,
Yeah.
albeit sometimes quite large.
Yes.
It's a general pollinated plant, so beetles, flies, bees, all sorts of insects will have a go at it. So it hasn't evolved to the point where it's become a specialist pollinator
Yes.
plant. And so yes, it is in fact one of the very early true flowering plants, the whole Magnolia acey thing.
Yes. Are we not blessed in Australia that we can kind of grow most? So we can grow the evergreen North American ones, which are a bit more sensitive, but we can also grow the Asian deciduous ones.
We can certainly in southern Australia. Some of the Asian deciduous ones won't do so well if they get slightly further north where you get to the subtropics and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can grow a lot of the different species of magnolias in this country.
That really was the most beautiful magnolia. And it was such a hot day, I actually got really sunburnt on my arms. But
Yeah, well, there you go. And today isn't, so we've got this
No.
lovely light today.
why have we seem to choose the worst days to film, but
Yeah.
never mind. Now my question though about that magnolia is it is rare and it's unusual and it's beautiful and a very handsome tree. How available is it? So particularly for viewers say in North America or in Europe? What are your thoughts?
I would say it is far more available to our Northern Hemisphere viewers.
Yeah.
You will find nurseries that have wilsonii or one of its very close relatives in most larger general nurseries, I think, in the
Yes.
Northern Hemisphere. Here in the Southern Hemisphere, though, it is much less available. So you do have to do a bit more hunting for it because it's not quite so heat tolerant. So it has a smaller range of where we can
Right.
grow it well down here.
Do you
But
have
they're
it
about,
at your nursery?
guess what? Yes,
do?
yes, I do. How's that for luck?
A
as it would
commercial
be?
plug. Well,
Yes,
it's
there
not
we
really.
go.
Anyway.
Well,
Well, that's very interesting. Beautiful, beautiful plant. All right, so what is your second Christmas gift to us?
oh, well, the second one is a North American shrub that again is not seen in this country all that often.
Okay, let's take a look. Now, we are walking down the drive because as I drove in today, there is the most beautiful shrub that caught my eye. And I've decided to hijack this episode so you can tell me all about it.
What a good idea. Let's go and see it.
Give us a clue geographically. Where are we going, Stephen?
Oh, we're going to North America and more specifically California.
Off to California we go.
Fantastic.
And here it is, Stephen. Isn't it the most beautiful of flowers? What is it called?
All right, it's called Carpenteria californica. And
Carpenteria.
yes, named after William Carpenter, who was a professor,
Yes.
a medical professor.
Yes.
And he was born in 1811 and he died in 1848, unfortunately.
Oh, that's very early age to be a medical professor, just saying. What a stunning flower. Why was he involved in the naming of it?
I've no idea. He came from Louisiana.
Yeah.
This is in California. I would say that there was a little bit of nepotism going on or something along those
Toing
lines.
and froing in
Yeah.
the botanic world.
Yes, exactly. And it's an interesting shrub because it's in its own genus. It has no close relatives. So,
Really?
So it's what they call monotypic. So there's only one species in the genus.
Monotypic. Curious because the flowers look like they're sort of familiar or similar to many others.
They look rather like the flowers of a Philadelphus, the mock
but-
orange.
but blown up.
Yeah, and it's actually in the same family as the hydrangea, so there you go. That'll just throw you into complete disarray. And it's a fabulous evergreen shrub, up to around about 2 to maybe 3 metres, depending on where you plant it.
Yeah.
Being Californian, it likes a Mediterranean-style climate.
Yes.
It's reasonably cold hardy. I've seen it growing in Ireland. I've seen it growing in the south of England. It certainly grows well in New Zealand. And it really is a beautiful shrub. It flowers in the very late spring, early summer, so
Yes.
it comes in just before the main perennial thing happens.
Great timing. Now, you have got yours in quite a sunny spot, so
Yep.
full sun.
Full sun seems to suit it best. It likes good drainage.
Yes.
It's reasonably drought tolerant once its roots get established. I very rarely water this part of the garden. If it's got any downside at all, and I always like to make sure people are aware of these things.
We all like a downside. or we
Well,
don't.
no, we don't. But most
gotta
people
know.
won't tell you. You know, they'll tell you all the good bits, but they won't tell you the downside. Although it's an evergreen shrub, after flowering, its foliage from last year starts to die, which is fine. A lot of evergreen shrubs shed their foliage after flowering, but it tends to hold on to the dead leaves. So it can look a bit scruffy in that early summer period after it finishes flowering. And if you're a real pedant, you'll go in and strip the dead leaves off.
Are you a pedant?
Yes.
So how big is this going to get?
All right, so the biggest I've ever seen are about 3 metres tall, or about 9 feet in the old measurements.
It's quite big.
Tends to normally be a bit narrower than it is tall, but still quite a substantial bush. So as long as the soil's well drained, doesn't seem to matter whether it's alkaline or acid. I've seen it growing in both. But if it's got a bit of humus in it and so forth, it will probably flourish better.
As is yours. It's amazing. And one question, does it smell?
No.
All right, 2 magic questions. Availability, propagation. It's in your garden. It's going to be hard to find.
It is in fact fairly hard to find. It's not terribly available in Australia. I think it's more commonly available in some of the other countries around the world, certainly in North America. And most people here find it difficult to propagate. I strike it from very, very soft cuttings. These are almost ready to pick now, and that's still in the flowering phase. So the new growth is quite soft, and I generally do them from very softwood cuttings. And I have a modicum of success.
A modicum of success. I can see the bees are loving it.
Yes, single flowers like this with pollen exposed all over the place is just a bee magnet.
Bee paradise. Well, thank you for letting me hijack the program. It is such a stunning shrub. What could we do next week, Stephen?
Well, I'll select something next week, shall I?
The choice is yours. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for your Christmas gifts.
That's a pleasure. So we're all going white this Christmas with white flowers everywhere.
Except you and your halo of Mutabilis. There's a gentle fragrance, isn't there? It's not perhaps a rose.
I don't know. I can't smell it because of the citrus trees just over there that have a fantastic perfume.
As we said though, happy Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful festive season and a break at the end of the year. I think we all need it.
We certainly do after the year we've all been through.
Yes, we do post every week, so do hit subscribe to find out what we're doing next week. And Stephen?
So next week, it could be a really interesting climbing plant.
Oh, I'm all about interesting climbing plants. Mr. Ryan, well, until then, thank you very much for watching and we'll see you next week.
Bye all.